Picture the shelf at the farm supply store. Right there at eye level, in a slick molded case with a carry handle, sits a battery power station. The tag reads $1,500, one box. The young fella stocking the shelf will tell you that box keeps your lights on when the grid goes down, and he isn't lying to you. Now walk 2 aisles over. Down low, dusty, marked down because nobody's reaching for it, there's a glass oil lamp for $18 and a quart of lamp oil for $9. Same job, light in the dark. One of those costs about 60 times what the other one costs. So here's the question worth asking before you hand over that $1,500. Does the cheap old stuff actually work? And past that, when the power's been out 4 days, the roads are iced, and nobody is coming up your road, which one is still doing its job? I'll give you the honest answer right at the front, because I'm not here to sell you a grudge against good gear. The power station works. It's a genuinely fine machine. The chemistry inside it is real. It runs clean and quiet, and there are jobs it does that nothing on my grandfather's ridge could touch, but it only does part of the job. It has one weakness nobody prints on the box, and the old methods walk straight through it. By the time we're done, I'll hand you the single number that decides this whole contest. It isn't the price. Stay with me for it, because once you know that number, you'll never look at a power station the same way. My name's Roy Hensley. My people have held this same stretch of southern Appalachian ridge since before this was a country, and when my father passed young, it was my grandfather who raised me and taught me the old work with his own hands. He kept a leather journal of it so none of it would die quiet, and this channel is me making good on a promise I made him over that book. Do me one small kindness and subscribe. Not for my sake. It's that most of this knowledge got shoved to the bottom shelf and forgotten, and pulling it back into daylight only works if enough of us keep it lit. The next one's a good one, and you'll want it. Here's the plan. 4 old methods for surviving a blackout, each one taught plain enough to do this week. Then I'll lay the modern kit out beside them fair and square, and tell you exactly when to reach for which. No cheerleading either direction. Method 1 is light, and the workhorse there is the oil lamp. A simple glass lamp with a flat cotton wick. You fill the base with clear paraffin lamp oil or Coney kerosene. You trim the wick square to about 1/8 of an inch so it burns even, and you keep the flame low and steady, no taller than a thumbnail. Run it too high and you get soot and waste. The way it works is dead simple. The wick pulls fuel up by the same action, a paper towel pulls up a spill, the flame turns that fuel to vapor, and the vapor burns. No moving parts to fail. Now the numbers, because numbers are the whole point. A lamp like that sips roughly 1 ounce of fuel an hour. Researchers who actually measured a batch of these lamps clocked them right around that mark. That means a single quart runs you better than 30 hours of light. Burn it 4 hours an evening, and one $9 quart carries you close to 8 nights. That's under 30 cents an hour to keep a room lit with no grid, no battery, no charging. It won't flood the room like an electric lantern. You get enough to move safe, cook, and read close. But it never needs a wall outlet, and it never goes dead the way a battery does. Here's the safety, and I don't skip it. Lamp oil is a fuel, so treat it like one. Never fill or refuel a lamp that's lit or still hot. Keep it away from curtains and anything that'll catch. And here's the one folks forget. Any open flame indoors burns oxygen and gives off a little carbon monoxide, so crack a window for airflow and put a working carbon monoxide alarm in the room. That alarm matters more than you think, and it'll matter again before we're through. Hold that lamp in your mind, because next I want to talk about heat. And heat is where the old ways start getting stubborn in the best way. Method 2 is the heat you make, and that's the wood stove. A modern EPA-certified wood stove runs somewhere between 60 and 75% efficient, and while it's burning, it throws serious warmth. The rule that makes it work is dry wood. Seasoned hardwood, split and stacked off the ground, under cover for 6 months to a year, down under 20% moisture. Green wood hisses, smokes, and coats your chimney with creosote. Dry wood roars clean. Who came out ahead when the wood stove went quiet in most houses? The utility and the furnace maker, plainly. And that's no dark plot. A thermostat you never have to feed at 2 in the morning is a real convenience, and people paid for it gladly. Nothing wrong with you for having a furnace. It's just that when the furnace needs the grid, and the grid is down, the stove that needs neither is the one still warming the room. The safety here is not optional. A dirty chimney is a chimney fire waiting on a cold night, so it gets cleaned before the season. And every fuel you burn indoors makes carbon monoxide, which is why that alarm I mentioned goes on every floor of the house. Burning wood is how the old-timers stayed alive through February. It's also how careless people die. Respect it, and it'll never let you down. But a wood stove has a flaw of its own. Stop feeding it and the metal cools fast, and by dawn, you're cold again. Which brings me to the method most people have never even heard of, and it's the one that quietly makes the difference. Method 3 is heat that lingers. Thermal mass. The idea is ancient, and it's simple. Instead of storing warmth in thin metal that cools in an hour, you store it in something heavy that gives it back slow for half a day. The grand version is the masonry heater, a stove built of brick or soapstone weighing hundreds of pounds. You burn 1 or 2 short, hot fires a day, the mass drinks the heat, and then it radiates gentle warmth into the room for 12 to 24 hours off that single firing. These run 80 to 90% efficient. The U.S. Department of Energy, in its own guidance on heating with wood, points to the masonry heater as about the cleanest and most efficient way there is to burn it. The outer stone only reaches 140 to 180 degrees, warm to lean against but safe to touch, while a plain steel stove will scorch you. Now, you're not building a masonry heater this weekend, and I won't pretend you are. So here's the poor man's version of the exact same physics, and you can do it tonight. Set a clean, dry brick or a flat soapstone by your stove, and let it heat while the fire burns. Then wrap it thick in a wool towel and lay it at the foot of the bed. That stone will pour warmth into your covers for hours after the fire's died down. No brick handy? Fill a metal bottle with hot water, cap it tight, wrap it the same way. That's the old bed warmer trick, and it's why the old folks slept warm in a cabin that was near freezing by morning. One caution so nobody gets hurt. The stone gets hot enough to burn skin, so it always goes in cloth, never bare against you or the sheets, and never a synthetic wrap that can melt or catch near the flame. Wrapped right, it's the safest warmth in the house. Before I give you the 4th method, and it's the one that actually beats that $1,500 box, let me say one quick thing and then get right back to it. There's far more of this than fits in one video. I finally gathered the whole of what my grandfather wrote down, and what I've learned filling the gaps, into a book over on my site. It's the long version of everything I do up here. It's there if you want it, and that's the last you'll hear of it. Now, the cellar. Method 4 is cold you never pay for. Root cellar cold storage. Dig down below the frost line and the earth holds a steady temperature near 52 degrees year-round, no matter what the sky is doing. Build a proper cold storage space and you can hold it right in the sweet spot. The University of Missouri Extension and the University of Alaska Fairbanks Cooperative Extension both put the target at 32 to 40 degrees with 90 to 95% humidity. That's the exact condition that keeps carrots, beets, potatoes, cabbage, and apples firm and eating good for months. And here is the part that ought to stop you cold. Your kitchen refrigerator, per the University of Minnesota Extension, sits around 40 degrees, but only 50 to 60% humidity, too dry for most of that produce. The cellar beats your fridge at its own job, on zero electricity. You don't need a fancy build to start. A corner of an unheated basement, a hole dug into a north-facing hillside, even a clean metal trash can or cooler buried in the ground with a lid will get you partway there. If your cellar runs a touch too cold in deep winter, The Alaska Extension folks note that a single 100-watt bulb set low can nudge it back up. That's it. That's the whole machine. Now weigh what that means against the store shelf. The USDA is blunt about your fridge in an outage. It keeps food safe for 4 hours, and that's all. A full freezer holds about 48 hours if you don't open it, 24 if it's half full. Past that, food climbs into the danger zone between 40 and 140 degrees, where bacteria double about every 20 minutes. The battery power station buys you somewhere between 10 and 14 hours of running a typical refrigerator, and then it's empty. The cellar keeps your winter's food for the whole winter and asks for nothing. Who profited when the cellar got filled in and forgotten? The appliance makers and the grid that runs the fridge, honestly. And I want you to hear me. That is not a conspiracy. It's just a better marketed product winning on convenience. A refrigerator is a marvel, and I'm glad to own one. The cellar didn't stop working. It just got quiet, and nobody had a reason to remind you it was there. That's on the market, not on you. So there's the 4. Lamp for light, stove for heat, thermal mass to make that heat last, cellar for cold. Now let me be as fair to the modern gear as I've been to the old, because you deserve the straight comparison, not a sermon. The modern kit is really 3 tools: the battery power station, the propane generator, and portable solar. Take the battery first, since it's the one on the title. A $1,500 unit stores right around 1,500 watt-hours. One of the popular ones holds 1,518. Inside is lithium iron phosphate, a stable chemistry that lasts thousands of charges. It's silent, it puts out 0 fumes, it's safe to run indoors, and it delivers clean power. That last part is not a small thing. If someone in your house runs a CPAP machine at night, an oxygen concentrator, or keeps insulin cold, that battery is the right tool, and I'd tell you to buy it without blinking. It'll run a kitchen fridge 10 to 14 hours, keep phones and a lamp going, and do it in dead silence while everybody sleeps. Worth every dollar for that. Here's the one mistake that makes people feel cheated by it. They buy the battery expecting it to carry a long outage on its own, or they figure a little folding solar panel will just top it back up. It won't. Not the way they hope. To actually keep pace with a refrigerator, you need close to 200 watts of panel and about 5 good hours of sun. On a gray, iced-over storm day, the very day your power's out, you might get a fraction of that. Once the battery's empty and the sky's overcast, it's a handsome brick until the sun comes back. That's not a knock on the machine. It's just the truth of what a battery is. The propane generator is louder but hardier. A 20-pound tank holds about 4.5 gallons and will run a small unit 8 to 14 hours at a light load, closer to 3 hours if you're leaning on it hard. But the generator carries a danger the battery does not, and I will not soften it. The Consumer Product Safety Commission ties portable generators to roughly 100 carbon monoxide deaths a year in this country. It must run outdoors only, at least 20 feet from the house, exhaust pointed away from every door, window, and vent. The CDC is flat about this. Opening a window is not enough. In an enclosed space that gas can kill in under 15 minutes, often before anyone wakes. A generator is a fine tool used right, and a coffin used wrong. 20 feet, outdoors, alarm on every floor. Portable solar is the last leg, and it's only ever as good as the sky above it. Full sun, it's a quiet miracle. A winter storm, it's a placemat. So now, the honest verdict, and the number I promised you. Set price aside. The number that actually decides a blackout is runtime without resupply. How long does the thing keep working after the fuel and the charge you started with run dry? That's the figure nobody stamps on the box, and it's where this whole thing turns. The battery's honest number is about half a day to a day on a fridge, a couple of days of just lights, and then 0 unless the sun cooperates. The generator's number is, however, many propane tanks you had the foresight to store, and not 1 hour more. But the cellar's number is the entire winter. The oil lamps is close to 8 evenings per quart, and you can stack quartz on a shelf for pennies. The wood heat's number is as long as your woodpile, and a woodpile is something you can go make with a saw. That's the trick that beats the $1,500 power station, not one clever gadget. It's cold storage in the ground that never needs charging, light that runs on a quart, and heat you can make and make last. A kit that never hits zero. Now let me be honest right back the other way, because a fair man has to. The old kit does not replace that battery for the jobs the battery was built for. It cannot run a breathing machine. It cannot keep a phone charged to call for help. It cannot power the medical device that keeps somebody in your house alive. For those, buy the battery and thank the modern world for it. So, match the method to your week. If a person under your roof depends on a machine that must have electricity, the battery comes first, full stop, and nothing I've said changes that. If what you're really after is to not sit in a cold, dark house eating spoiled food while you wait out an ice storm, the old kit does that for under $50 and keeps doing it long after the battery quits. Most folks, truth be told, want a little of both. The battery for the electric emergencies, the old ways for the long haul. Here's your one thing to do this weekend, and it's small. For about $18, buy one oil lamp and a single quart of oil. Fill it, trim the wick square, and light it once tonight in the kitchen with a window cracked just to watch it work. Do it now while the power's on and your hands are steady, so the first time you strike that match in the dark isn't the first time you've ever used it. That's the whole first step. One lamp, one quart, one quiet flame you now trust. I'd like to hear from you before you go. What did your people do when the lights went out? Maybe your grandmother had a way of keeping the milk cold in a spring house, or your granddad had a trick for stretching a woodpile through a hard march. Tell me in the comments where you're from and what they did. I read them, and whichever story stirs up the most conversation down there is the one I'll build the next full video around. Speaking of the next one, I've been meaning to show you how to build a working cold storage box from a single buried trash can for less than the cost of that quart of lamp oil that'll hold your garden through to spring. That's the one I'm cutting next. And it looks like the good folks at YouTube have already lined up another one of mine right there on your screen. Go on and give it a click. I've got a feeling it's exactly the kind of thing you came here for.